I guess we ought to start out. What in the world, for somebody that might not know, is an umbrella insurance policy?
Troy, an umbrella policy is basically an excess layer of liability that extends over your homeowner's liability, your auto liability, and your potentially your watercraft liability.
Watercraft, so boats and
Boats.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And now, so with those are an umbrella policy is in addition to some of the a auto policy or a home policy. It's not in lieu of, right?
That is correct.
Okay, that's why, because a lot of people I want to make sure everyone knows it's not a separate. It's on top of that.
That's correct.
Okay.
yeah, so over and above the normal policies that an individual would have, some of which are required as the regulators would require, like automobile liability insurance, right?
Right. If you have a mortgage on your home, they'll generally require a certain amount of liability coverage.
The mortgage
It's
company,
part
right.
of the it's part of the homeowner's package generally. The auto, obviously, liability limits. The state has minimum requirements, and then there's attachment points above the minimum requirements that you would need if you were going to have an umbrella policy in place.
I want you to be involved too. Ask any
Sure.
questions you have, because
Yep.
you got a lot more letters behind your name than me. So.
I don't know that matters. It's just life's experience, and I also have a little more than you. So probably
A few more grays.
that's right. More
things like
dog
that.
bites, things like that. It's, crashes, loud noises. So talk to us about the exposures that an umbrella policy might actually aid you in
Yeah,
coverage.
I mean, why would you want one in the first place?
Well, anybody that has any type of assets at all should really have, and you own a home, you're going to have the homeowner's policy. You drive a car, you're going to have an auto policy. Again, the umbrella policy provides an excess layer of coverage beyond that. So as you get married, you have children, your exposures change. You work, you earn more money, you save more money. You have that added exposure as you go through life, and life changes. So when you start out really as a young couple, really even as an individual that may be renting an apartment, you still have potentially a renter's policy that'll cover your contents, but there's a liability component with that, and it might make sense to have an umbrella policy over and beyond that. But especially when you get into the years where you have children, you have teenage drivers in the car.
Right.
Statistics say that teen drivers, the crash risk is 3 times for 16 to 19-year-olds as anybody else. So there's a huge exposure there.
And you're saying that if you had an accident, Lord forbid, if your teen driver had the accident and there was significant damage done, the liability policy might tap
not cover
out.
all that, right?
Might tap out before it got to the end of that, and then you're faced with a lawsuit, I assume.
That is correct, because a typical automobile policy will either have $300,000 total per accident or
Right.
$500,000 total per accident, and those limits could be exhausted very quickly.
Okay. All right. So, are there some other examples that you could provide as to places where you might need to have this coverage? Obviously, in order to cover my bottle cap collection, which is my big asset, I need some umbrella policy, right?
Well, the big thing is, again, if
Let's
you're
have some nice bottle caps.
Oh, they're awesome.
That's exactly
You
right.
should see 'em. I love it.
Are you active on social media, Troy?
No.
You're not. Okay,
No,
so you're safe in that.
that's a liability that I'm not willing to
Right.
take. Yeah.
Well, so
Plus, I've got better things to do first.
personal injury, that includes libel and slander. Libel.
Oh, okay.
Libel being written, slander being spoken. In the day of social media, I mean,
People actually can sue for a lot of money for that type of stuff, can't they?
right. So those are things that are covered under an umbrella policy. If you have pets, especially dogs, 1/3 of all umbrella policy insurance claims are actually dog bite related.
Wow. That is a awesome statistic that I never would
Really?
have guessed.
That many?
Some of the judgments that are related to that would blow your mind.
Really.
Yeah.
Are there any examples of those that you would have?
Yes, there are from various carriers. There was a particular instance where it was in Florida, actually, where a gentleman was taking out his trash, and one of the neighbors escaped through an open gate. Neighbor's dog's not the neighbor.
I was about to say, they got him. They got the neighbor locked up.
The guy got out. The guy got out. But his 3 dogs got out and went through an open gate, and the guy had multiple lacerations, had
Wow.
damage to his lower back, and the judgment was $7.7 million.
Oh my God!
And this is an actual claim from one of our carriers.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you made a joke of it, but when I was a kid, my younger brother did bite a dog once. I
Your
am
younger
not
brother
bit
a
a dog.
dog?
Yeah, it was a
I'll
dachshund.
show that dog.
He was like 2 or 3 years old. He literally bit a dog, but I don't think that the dog had a good attorney, so he didn't sue. Now, just as a precursor to this, usually people buy the umbrella to kind of cover beyond their homeowners.
In addition to,
It's-
Home and auto, or even a renter's policy, right? But yes,
Okay.
it's an excess
But it's
layer.
that sort of thing. So you get the homeowners insurance, and obviously legally you have to have auto insurance liability,
The
right?
basic, the state minimum liability.
Yeah.
That's right.
so I guess one of the questions I would have on the umbrella is, does it go in increments of coverage? I would assume $500,000, million, things like that, over and above what you have, or what would those increments be?
The increments generally start at $1 million, and then they're in $1 million increments. So that with most carriers, you have your what's called your captive insurance carriers, like a State Farm and Allstate of Farmers, which everybody's familiar with. And then as an independent agent, we have markets that we go to, obviously such as auto owners and travelers and Chubb and other markets. But each of the carriers will have their own. You can usually write a $1 million or maybe a $2 million umbrella policy with very little underwriting. But when you get to $3 million or $5 million or above, it generally requires extra underwriting.
Is there a formula that would give you guidance in how
That's-
much
yeah.
insurance you need from
Good
an umbrella
question.
policy?
On a high level, yes, we drill down a little more than just a basic formula. But on a high level, if you take and you have to take a look at a lot of factors, including somebody's age, their years of work, because in a judgment, their actual earnings, future earnings, could be at stake. But if you look at their assets, if you add up their assets and their basically, excuse me, if you add up their assets and then you look at their equity in their home,
Sure.
and then you look at their combination of their liability limits on their automobile policy and then their homeowner's policy,
Sure.
the gap can be found there from a starting point.
Okay. I would assume then that the state they live in might impact that as well, because I know Florida has certain laws that disallow for somebody to take your home under certain judgments.
Right, it would vary state by state. That's
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, all that's good. Now, I do see a note here that says if you had workers working on your home and something happened to them and Lord forbid they got hurt, the umbrella policy could come over the top of the homeowner's insurance. Is that correct?
Right, there could be
Yeah.
scenarios where, and there actually have been examples where that has covered.
Right. All right.
Injury
Not,
to
not as
somebody
often
within
as
your
the
house.
dog bite, though, huh? I'm
Right,
still
exactly.
stuck on that one. I was blown away that dogs actually would cause that much angst. Now, are there things that an individual needs to know or declare when it comes to, I want to go out and buy an umbrella policy? I would assume that there are certain risks that you need to identify to the insurer
Well,
as you
generally,
go through.
right. If you're already have coverage in place with a particular carrier and you're adding an umbrella policy, they're already going to have a lot of the underwriting information that they're going to need. But part of the process when you're applying for homeowners coverage, what you're disclosing to the underwriter, a lot of the questions that are asked involve, do you have any pets? If so, what kind? So that's part of the equation.
All right.
So it can make it more difficult to get an umbrella policy put in place, depending on if you have a dangerous dog.
Okay. My 2 dachshunds,
I don't think they would fall into that
Oh,
category.
well, phew. That is awesome.
I
I'm
guess
glad.
my little poodle would be okay too, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Yeah.
You never know.
I mean, poodle's pretty bad anyway. I could say it's my wife's dog, but that would be a lie because I got her before my wife.
Keith's probably the only one here with a awesome pit bull or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Labradoodle. She can be.
Labradoodle?
She can be possessive.
Well, there's that. Keith, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, I guess we call 770-429-9166, ask for Keith Palmer or our insurance department. Is there anything you want to add to this?
Well, there's a couple of benefits to umbrella policies that may not be available in an underlying policy. The worldwide coverage territory, for example, in an automobile policy, the coverage territory is generally, for example, with my policy, the coverage territory is the United States, its territories, possessions, and Canada,
Okay.
and Mexico. And then in an umbrella policy, they generally will have worldwide coverage. So as an example, if you were traveling overseas and you rented a car,
Ah,
it might extend liability where for the car rental for liability. So
See, I wouldn't think about that. I
Not
would
at all.
assume
Me
since
either.
since I have insurance, I'd be covered, but I'd be wrong.
yeah.
So,
Is that, I guess that's pretty common then, right? That, people traveling,
probably don't even know
be better
the
to,
liability involved, though.
yeah, better to have an umbrella policy if they don't already.
right.
It's
Especially
well
if you
a
find
reason
yourself
to-
traveling fairly frequently. I mean, I would imagine if you're going out of the country once in a blue moon, that's one thing. But I mean, are there policies you can have? I mean, if you find yourself only going out of the country once every 10 years, is it even worth having something in place like that?
Well, you should have an umbrella policy in place.
Period.
Regardless.
for various
Right.
other
Right.
reasons. Well, if you
If
have
can
assets,
afford, if
Right.
you can
If you
afford
have
to travel
assets.
abroad,
Right.
then you're going to need an umbrella policy.
Interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, umbrella policies are rarely reasonable or fairly reasonable priced, are they not?
They are. I mean, a husband and a wife, house, 2 cars.
Two kids
Well, without the 2 kids, I mean, about $150 to $300 a year,
a
generally
year.
per
Oh,
million.
wow.
When you start, it changes dramatically. Obviously, when you throw kids into the mix, they are rated in. I have 2 kids under the age of 25, so they're factored into my umbrella policy. A lot of people have multiple homes, so they might have a home here, a home in the mountain, or home in the mountains, a home in Florida, or Hilton Head, South Carolina. They might have watercraft, so that all those factors play into the rates of the umbrella policy.